The space market was crowded with noise, lights, and people from many planets. Traders shouted prices. Buyers walked quickly, looking at cages, robots, and rare creatures. In a dark corner of the market, away from the bright lights, a young alien girl sat quietly in chains. Her name was Mira. Mira was from a peaceful race called the Feral. They were soft-spoken and kind-hearted. Their world was full of forests, rivers, and songs. But that life was now a memory. A few years ago, raiders attacked her village. Many were taken. She was one of them. Now, she sat on a cold metal floor with her hands tied and her eyes looking down. Her clothes were torn, her skin thin, and her voice silent. She had not spoken in days. She had learned long ago that words meant nothing here. The trader who owned her was named Zarnik. He was large and rough. He sold beings like they were tools. Mira was one of many he had caught and brought to this place. But she was never chosen. She was too quiet, too thin, and too weak to do heavy work. Buyers wanted strong slaves or ones that looked rare. Mira was none of that. Zarnik often called her worthless. Sometimes he kicked her cage just to make her move. She never cried. She had no more tears left. She had accepted this life cold, empty, and forgotten. That morning, Mira sat still, her eyes half closed. The sun of the nearby system barely touched her corner. Then, someone new entered the market, a human. He was not tall or strong-looking, but he walked with calm steps. His name was Ryan. He wore a simple coat and carried a small bag. He had a soft face but sharp eyes. As he moved through the market, he did not smile, but he didn't frown either. He looked careful. Most humans were rare in this part of space. People watched him with interest, but Ryan didn't stop for anything. Not for weapons, not for rare creatures. He walked past the big stalls and came near the dark corner. He stopped in front of Mira. Mira did not look up at first, but she felt something strange, a warm feeling in the cold air. Slowly, she lifted her head. Their eyes met. Ryan did not speak. He just stared at her for a moment. Not like others, not with greed, not with pity, just a quiet, thoughtful look. Zarnik came over, his voice loud. You want that one. She's useless. Been here too long. Eats little, works less. Ryan didn't look at Zarnik. He just pointed. How much? Zarnik laughed. For her. I'll give her for cheap. 100 credits and you take her now. Without arguing, Ryan took out a small card and gave it to Zarnik. The trade was done. Zarnik unlocked the chains and pushed Mira forward. She stumbled, weak from sitting so long. Ryan caught her gently. His hands were warm. Can you walk? He asked. Mira did not answer, but she nodded slowly. They left the market together. People whispered as they passed. Why did a human buy that girl? She wasn't beautiful. She wasn't strong. What was the use? Ryan didn't care. He led Mira to a small ship waiting near the edge of the port. It was old but clean. Inside, it was quiet. The air smelled fresh. Not like the market. Not like her cage. He guided her to a small room. It had a bed, a blanket, and soft lights. Mira looked around, unsure. Was this a trick? Was she being moved to another prison? Ryan placed a food pack on the table and left the room. He didn't lock the door. Mira stood still for a long time. Then, slowly, she sat on the bed. It was soft. Too soft. She touched the blanket like it was treasure. Her hands shook. She had not slept in a bed since the day she was taken. She looked at the food. It was warm, simple bread and soup. She waited. Maybe it was poisoned. Maybe he would come back and laugh. But Ryan didn't return. Minutes passed, then an hour. Mira's stomach hurt. She picked up the bread and took a small bite. It was real. It was safe. For the first time in years, her eyes filled with tears. That night, she slept without chains. In the control room, Ryan sat in the pilot's seat, looking at the stars. His ship, the Hopewind, floated gently above the planet. He said nothing, but his thoughts were full. He didn't know her story. He didn't know her name yet. But when he saw her, something inside him said she needed help. Real help. Not just food and space, but respect. He had seen too many like her forgotten ones, thrown away like they were nothing. Maybe this time, he could make a difference. The next morning, Mira woke up slowly. She was not used to soft beds and quiet rooms. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she sat up fast, her heart beating fast. But there were no chains, no cage, no shouting voice. She looked around. The small room was still clean and warm. Her empty bowl and plate from last night were placed neatly on a tray. Her hands touched the blanket again, just to make sure it was real. The door opened slowly. Ryan stood there. He held a fresh tray of food in his hands. He didn't step inside too quickly. He waited and looked at her gently. "I brought breakfast," he said in a calm voice. "You don't have to eat it now. Just when you're ready." Mira nodded a little but didn't speak. Ryan smiled once, placed the tray near her, and turned to leave. But just before he walked out, Mira whispered, "Thank you." It was a small voice, almost like the sound of wind. Ryan paused. He turned his head slightly and nodded. Then he left quietly, closing the door behind him. Mira stared at the food. She picked up the spoon with shaky hands, warm rice, some fruit, and a cup of clean water. Every bite felt like a dream. After eating, she stood slowly and walked to the small window. Outside, stars floated in the dark sky. They were flying. She was in space, inside a real ship. Not in a prison, not in a cage. It felt impossible. Later that day, Mira stepped out of her room for the first time. Her legs were weak, but she moved slowly through the hallway. The ship was small, but clean and quiet. She followed the sound of tools clicking. She found Ryan in the engine room. He was fixing something on the floor with a tool in one hand and a light in the other. His coat was hanging nearby. He wore a simple shirt and pants. No weapons, no armor. He looked up and smiled softly. "You feeling better?" Mira nodded. "You don't have to stay in your room," he said. "You can go wherever you want on the ship. Just don't press the red button in the control room." Mira blinked. Then, to her own surprise, a small smile came to her face. It was tiny, but it was there. Ryan saw it but didn't say anything. He just went back to his work. After a while, Mira sat nearby and watched. He worked slowly and carefully. Sometimes he spoke to himself or to the machine. It made her curious. "Why do you fix things yourself?" she asked. Her voice soft but clearer than before. Ryan looked up, surprised. "Machines are like people," he said. "If you take care of them, they keep going. If you forget them, they fall apart." Mira thought about that for a moment. It made sense in a way she could feel in her heart. Over the next few days, Mira started walking around the ship more. She ate regularly, slept better, and even asked small questions. Ryan never pushed her to speak. He never touched her without reason. He always knocked before entering her room. He treated her like a guest, not a tool, not a thing. One evening, they sat together in the control room. Ryan was flying the ship toward a quiet moon where they could rest. Mira sat beside him, watching stars pass by. "Why did you buy me?" she finally asked. Ryan stayed quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, slowly. "Because no one else would. Because you didn't deserve to be there." Mira lowered her head. "I'm not useful. That's not why I helped you," he said. "You don't need to be useful to be treated like a person." Mira looked at him. No one had ever said that to her before. Not even before she was captured. She wanted to believe him. Part of her heart did. That night, Ryan showed her the basics of flying the ship. He pointed at the screen and the buttons. Mira watched with interest. "This is the nav control," he said. "It helps us find where we're going." She reached out and pressed a small green button. The screen lit up. "You're a quick learner," Ryan said. Smiling. Mira looked at the screen. Her eyes wide. It was the first time in years she felt like she could choose a path again. The next morning, Mira was sitting alone in the dining area when she saw something on the table. A small book. She opened it and found pictures of stars, planets, and small notes in Ryan's handwriting. He had left it for her. A guide to space, a map of the stars. On the first page, a sentence was written in big, clear letters. You are free. Now, Mira held the book to her chest, her eyes closed, her lips moved silently. She didn't say the words aloud, but her heart did. Thank you, human. Mira was changing. Her face was still quiet, her eyes still careful. But there was something new in her steps. She walked with more strength. She started helping with small tasks on the ship, cleaning, organizing supplies, and learning to press the right buttons in the control room. Ryan noticed it all but never said too much. He only smiled sometimes, proud but gentle. One evening, they reached a busy trade station floating near a blue star. It was large, shaped like a ring, and filled with ships from every corner of space. They had to stop for supplies, food, fuel, and small tools. Mira wore a clean coat now, soft shoes, and her hair was brushed neatly behind her head. She looked in the mirror before leaving the ship. The girl who looked back at her was not the one who sat in chains in that cold market. Ryan and Mira walked into the station side by side. The place was full of color and noise. Machines beeped, traders shouted, lights blinked everywhere. Ryan moved slowly, letting Mira walk at her own pace. She stayed close, but she wasn't afraid like before. Her eyes moved carefully, watching, learning. They stopped at a food stall where a kind, old alien woman sold dried fruits. Ryan picked a few, Mira picked one, and they thanked her. Then Mira heard a voice she had hoped to forget. Rough, loud, and cruel. That one, she was nothing. I tried to sell her for weeks. Her body froze. The fruit in her hand slipped and fell to the ground. She turned her head. Slowly. Zanak. He was standing near a group of merchants, laughing and speaking loudly. His back was to her, but his voice was clear. He still wore the same rough armor, the same belt filled with keys and tools. He hadn't changed. Mira's breath became shallow. Her hands began to shake. Her legs felt heavy. Ryan noticed. Mira? He asked softly. What is it? She couldn't speak. She just pointed. Ryan looked, and his eyes narrowed. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Come, he said, and guided her away. They moved quickly through the crowd, not running but not slow either. Mira did not look back. She couldn't. Back on the ship, Mira sat in her room, curled on the bed. Her arms were wrapped around her knees. She stared at the wall, eyes full of fear again. Ryan knocked once, then entered. I'm sorry, she said quickly, her voice shaking. I froze. I couldn't move. I thought, it's okay, Ryan said, sitting beside her. You don't have to explain. Mira looked at him, her eyes shining with fear and something deeper, shame. He called me nothing, she whispered. He said it in front of everyone, like I was trash. I thought I was over it, but I'm not. Ryan didn't answer at first. Then he spoke slowly, kindly. You're not nothing, Mira. You never were. What he said doesn't matter. He only sees chains and coins. But I see someone learning, helping, healing. Mira looked down. I still feel small. Ryan nodded. It takes time. But you're not the same girl who sat in the dark corner of that market. There was silence for a few moments. Then Ryan stood up and said, Come with me. Mira wiped her eyes and followed him, unsure. He took her to the control room. The stars outside glowed softly. The ship was quiet. Ryan opened a drawer and pulled out a small metal cube. This is a recording cube, he said. You speak into it. It saves your words. Mira looked confused. What for? For your story. Your real story. The one that matters. He placed the cube in her hands and left the room. Mira sat alone, looking at the stars. She held the cube tightly. For a long time, she didn't speak. But then, very softly, she pressed the button and said, My name is Mira. I come from a forest world called Elrin. I had a family. I had a voice. Then I lost it all. Her voice was small, but steady. But I was found. I was given food, warmth, safety, and time. I'm still scared, but I'm trying. She paused. I saw the one who hurt me, and for a moment, I was back, in the cage. But I'm not there anymore. I'm not his anymore. I belong to the stars now. She pressed the cube again. The light turned off. Her words were saved. Mira looked out at the stars. The fear was still there, but now something else was with it. Courage. The next morning, Ryan found the cube on the table. He played it quietly. As he listened, he smiled. Mira stepped into the room with a soft expression. I want to learn more. Today, she said. Good, Ryan replied. We start with the engines. Together, they moved forward, leaving shadows behind. The next few days passed quietly. Mira stayed close to Ryan, helping with ship tasks and reading from the star guide he had given her every day. She learned something new: how to read the map screen, how to check engine levels, and how to listen to ship signals. She still remembered Zarnik's voice, sharp like broken glass, but it didn't control her anymore. Not fully. Now, she had other voices to listen to: the hum of the ship, Ryan's calm words, and sometimes her own quiet thoughts. They were heading toward a station called Leonard Point, a peaceful place where travelers rested and traded stories. Ryan wanted to check if anyone there had heard news about Mira's homeworld. That name Melrin had not left Mira's mind. She wanted to believe that someone from her past might still be alive, a cousin, a friend, anyone. When the Hope Wind landed on Leonard Point, Mira looked out from the window. The station was large but calm, built like a flower with soft silver lights and smooth walkways. Trees grew in small glass gardens. People walked slowly, smiling, talking, resting. Ryan looked at Mira. You don't have to come with me if you're not ready. I want to, she said. I'm not scared. Not today. Together. They walked through the station. This time, Mira didn't wear fear. She wore a long gray coat, boots, and a soft green scarf around her neck. She looked like a traveler, not a prisoner. People looked at her with interest, not pity. Ryan spoke to a few station workers and asked about Elrin. Some had heard of the planet, but said it was mostly empty now. Others gave names of places where survivors sometimes appeared. Mira listened carefully, writing everything down in a small notebook. Later, they visited a library filled with old records and star maps. Mira ran her fingers along the screens, searching for any data on her people. While Ryan spoke to the station chief, Mira sat near a wide glass wall that showed the stars outside. She stared at the lights, thinking of her old home. Then, she heard footsteps behind her. You again. That voice. Her hands froze. Mira turned slowly. Zarnik stood there, a half smile on his face. His heavy boots, his rough voice, his cold eyes. He looked exactly like before. He crossed his arms. Didn't think I'd see you walking free? I remember selling you cheap. Should have thrown you into the waste bin. Mira's heart pounded, but she didn't step back. She stood up. Ryan was still talking across the room. Mira didn't call him. She didn't run. I'm not yours anymore, she said. Her voice was quiet, but steady. Zarnik snorted. You think you're special now, just because some human gave you a ride? You were nothing then, and you're still nothing. No. Mira said, I'm not nothing. I'm learning. I'm healing. You don't get to decide who I am. Zarnik stepped closer, his voice low. You better watch your tongue. People like you don't last long out here. Suddenly, Ryan appeared behind him, calm, silent. I think it's time for you to leave, Ryan said. Zarnik turned, surprised. Oh, the human savior. What are you gonna do? Call security? No, Ryan said. I don't need to. Because unlike you, I treat people with respect. This station doesn't allow threats or slave talk. You're lucky she didn't call. The guards herself. Zarnik looked around. A few station cameras had turned toward him. He growled under his breath and stepped back. Not worth my time anyway, he muttered, and walked away. Mira didn't move for a long moment. Her hands were still shaking, but her feet didn't move. Ryan placed a gentle hand on her back. You did well. I didn't cry, she said softly. You stood tall. He replied, I'm proud of you. They sat in silence for a while, watching ships fly past the windows. That night on the Hope Wind, Mira sat in the control room by herself. The recording cube was in her hand again. She pressed the button. I saw him again, Zarnik. He said the same things, But I didn't listen this time. I remembered who I am. I remembered Ryan's voice. I remembered my own. She paused. I'm not a broken thing. I'm someone. I'm alive, and I'm still here. The next day, they left Leonard Point. Mira didn't look back. They flew toward a small planet called Terrell 3, where a trader had mentioned possible survivors from Elrin. The journey would take days, but Mira didn't mind. She liked the stars. She liked the sound of the engine. She liked the quiet moments with Ryan in the ship kitchen. She stirred soup while Ryan fixed a small radio. I want to help more, she said. You already are. He replied, I mean, bigger things. Maybe one day I can help someone like you helped me. Ryan smiled. That's the best dream I've heard in a long time. Mira smiled back. The stars outside blinked gently, like old friends calling them forward, and forward they went. The ship Hopewind moved gently through the black sea of stars. Inside, Mira sat at the front window, her notebook in her hands. Each page held names of planets, dates, and memories she didn't want to forget. Ryan had written some of the names for her places where Elrin survivors might have gone after the attack. They were heading toward a small planet called Terrell 3. It was quiet, covered in forest, with only a few small towns and farms. A trader at Leonard Point had said that a few Theral Mira's people might be living there in hiding. Mira's heart felt both heavy and full. What if someone she knew was there? What if she saw her cousin, or her teacher, or even just someone who remembered the songs from the forest? But there was also fear. What if no one remembered her? What if she was too different now? Ryan sat beside her, flying the ship with calm hands. He didn't ask too many questions. He just let Mira think. I keep dreaming of the river near my home. Mira said softly, the one with the silver stones. Ryan looked at her. You'll see something like it again. Maybe not the same river, but something just as peaceful. Mira smiled. I hope so. They landed on Terrell 3 during the early morning. Mist floated above the trees, and the wind smelled like fresh leaves and rain. Birds sang gently in the branches. Mira stepped onto the ground and closed her eyes for a moment. The air reminded her of home. Ryan walked beside her as they headed to the first village. It was small, built with round stone houses and wooden paths. People walked slowly, carrying baskets and tools. Most were from different species, but a few had soft gray skin and green eyes, signs of the Theral. Mira's heart beat faster. At the village center, they met a tall woman named Ella, who worked as a healer. Her eyes looked at Mira for a long moment. You are Theral, she said softly. Mira nodded. From Elrin, a village near the southern forest. Ella's eyes grew warm. Many were taken. We thought few survived. I was taken too, Mira whispered. But someone helped me. And now, I want to find who else is still alive. Ella led them to a small garden behind her house. There, an old man sat on a stone bench. His hair was white, and his hands were folded on his lap. His name was Liren, and he had been a teacher before the fall of Elrin. Mira looked at him with wide eyes. You taught songs in the forest school. Liren stared at her. Slowly, his eyes filled with tears. Mira, the quiet one, you always sat near the window. She nodded, tears in her own eyes. You remember me? I never forgot any of my students, he said with a smile, even the quiet ones. Mira sat beside him, and for the first time in years, she spoke the beginning of an old forest song. Liren joined in, voice shaking but strong. Ryan stood nearby, silent and respectful. He had never heard the language, but he could feel the meaning. That night, the villagers invited Mira and Ryan to stay for a meal. They sat around a fire, sharing food and stories. Mira listened to tales of escape, of hiding, of hope. A young girl sat beside Mira and asked, Are you a traveler? Mira smiled. I used to be lost, but now I think I'm becoming one. The girl nodded. I want to travel too. One day, you will, Mira said, and when you do, be kind to the ones who are alone. Later, when the stars were high, Mira and Ryan sat outside, watching the sky. Did you find what you were looking for? Ryan asked. I found part of it, Mira replied. But I don't want to stop here. There may be more survivors, others. Like me, I want to find them. Ryan nodded. Then we'll keep going. Mira looked at him. Her voice soft. You've given me so much. Freedom. Safety. A voice. I don't know how to repay you. You already did, Ryan said. You're living. You're growing. That's more than enough. They sat in silence for a while. Stars twinkling above. The next morning, before they left, Ella gave Mira a small gift, a silver necklace with a tiny stone from Elrin. Wear it, she said, and remember where you came from. But also remember how far you've gone. Mira placed the necklace around her neck. It felt light but strong. Back on the Hope Wind, Mira sat in the pilot's seat. Ryan watched her with a smile. You're ready to fly today? He asked. Mira nodded. Set the map. Let's find the next piece of the stars. The ship rose slowly, leaving the trees behind. As they flew, Mira opened her notebook and wrote one sentence at the top of the next page. We are not lost. We are just beginning. The Hope Wind glided quietly through space, heading toward a small, green planet called Vernine. It was known for its peaceful forests, clear rivers, and friendly inhabitants. Mira's heart beat fast. She had heard stories that some survivors of her people might live there, hidden away from danger. As the ship landed on the soft soil, Mira stepped outside and took a deep breath. The air was fresh and smelled like flowers. Sunlight filtered through tall trees, making patterns of light and shadow on the ground. Ryan walked beside her, carrying a small bag. This place feels like home, he said softly. Mira smiled. It's beautiful. Maybe this is where the stars brought us for a reason. They walked through the quiet village near the landing site. The houses were small and built from wood and stone, covered with vines and colorful flowers. People greeted them with warm smiles. At the center of the village was a garden filled with plants Mira had never seen before. Some glowed softly, others moved gently in the breeze. Mira felt calm. This place was different, safe. A kind woman named Lena approached them. She wore a simple dress and had soft eyes full of kindness. We have heard stories of the Theral. Lena said, Your people are welcome here. Mira nodded, feeling hope bloom inside her. Lena led them to a small house surrounded by flowering bushes. Inside lived a young girl named Tari. She was shy but bright-eyed, with silver hair that shimmered like the stars. When Mira saw her, she felt a deep connection. Tari was not from Mira's village, but they shared the same quiet strength. Over the next days, Mira helped Lena and Tari with the garden. She learned about the plants, how they healed, and how they gave life to the planet. She began to smile more, laugh more, and even speak in full sentences. Ryan fixed the ship's engine during the day and taught Mira how to pilot better. Together, they explored the forests and listened to the songs of the birds. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in orange and purple, Mira sat by the river with Tari. The water was clear and cool. Do you think I will ever be free? Tari asked quietly. Mira looked at her and smiled gently. I am free now, and you will be too. Freedom is not only about leaving chains. It's about feeling safe, feeling strong inside. Tari nodded, eyes shining with hope. That night, Mira stood outside the house, looking up at the stars. She touched the silver necklace around her neck, the one Ella had given her. I'm not just a survivor, she whispered to the sky. I am a keeper of stories, a bearer of hope. Ryan came out and stood beside her. Ready for the next journey? He asked. Mira looked at the stars, feeling their light inside her. Yes, she said. There are more lost stars to find, together. They walked back to the ship, their hearts full of new dreams. The Hope Wind floated softly above the edge of a large space market. Mira stood at the entrance of the ship, looking down at the busy place below. She remembered the first time she had come here. Chained, silent, and afraid. Now, she was different. Ryan stood beside her, calm and steady as always. Mira's hand touched the silver necklace around her neck. It had been with her through every step, through fear, pain, hope, and healing. The market was loud, with traders calling out and buyers walking fast. In one corner, Mira spotted a small cage. Inside sat a young girl, eyes wide and scared, just like Mira once was. Her heart tightened. Mira took a deep breath and stepped down from the ship. Ryan followed quietly. The girl inside the cage looked up as Mira approached. Fear showed in her eyes, but also curiosity. Mira knelt beside the cage and spoke softly. "It's okay now. You don't have to be afraid." The girl's lips moved, but no words came. Mira smiled gently. "I was like you once, alone, silent, chained, but someone helped me, and now I want to help you." A few people nearby watched quietly. Some whispered, surprised by the gentle words. Mira looked at the trader, a man who had no kindness in his eyes. "I want to buy her," Mira said. Firmly. The trader laughed, thinking it was a joke. "You? Why would you buy such a weak slave? You lose credits." Mira's eyes didn't leave his. "Because she deserves freedom." Ryan stepped forward. "She's with me." The trader hesitated, then nodded and unlocked the cage. Mira carefully lifted the girl out. The girl trembled but did not resist. Ryan placed a warm hand on Mira's shoulder. "You're brave." Mira smiled. "She deserves to be free, just like I did, back on the Hope Wind." Mira gave the girl clean clothes and a warm meal. The girl's eyes shone with hope for the first time. Ryan showed Mira how to help her feel safe, how to teach her small things, and how to listen. Mira held the girl's hand and whispered, "You have a name now." The girl smiled weakly. Days passed, and the new girl began to open up. She laughed softly and learned the ship's sounds. Mira saw herself in the girl, lost but healing. One evening, Mira sat in the pilot's seat, looking at the stars. Ryan came and sat beside her. "Your journey changed more than just your life," he said. "You gave someone else a chance." Mira nodded. "I want to keep doing this, help others who are lost." Ryan smiled warmly. "Then we will, together." Mira looked out at the vast sky and felt a quiet strength inside her. She was no longer the girl chained in a dark corner. She was Mira. She was free.